Luke and Julian here, and today we're going to show you how to make kombucha at home. And the method we're going to use is called continuous brewing of your kombucha, which is different than batch brewing. So with continuous brew, it's just a little bit easier because you can brew over and over in the same jug without having to take everything out, take your SCOBY out, and clean it. So first let's go over the ingredients. To make kombucha, it's really simple. What you need is basically sweet tea, and you need a SCOBY. So the tea that we usually use is just some loose leaf green tea, and if you're going to use loose leaf tea for a 1.5 gallon container, we use a 1/3 cup of loose leaf tea. If you don't want to use loose leaf tea and you're still going to use something like green tea or black tea, any of those other herbal teas which you can use, or you can use a blend, it's about 8 tea bags. So that's your first ingredient, 1/3 cup of loose leaf tea or 8 tea bags. The way you're going to make it sweet, of course, is with sugar. We use this kind of sugar, which is just organic evaporated cane juice sugar. Any granulated sugar will work, but maple syrup and honey won't work. I'm not really sure why, but you want to use a granulated sugar. One more thing on tea, also, we've done it with yerba mate as well. That turns out pretty good. If you look at a lot of the kombuchas in the store, it'll be like a blend of green tea or yerba or oolong tea or black tea, things like that. So those are your main ingredients, and then of course you must have a SCOBY, which is kind of the jellyfish looking thing. In this jug here, which is empty, it's floating on top there. It's kind of ugly. It's like a mushroom jellyfish type thing, and in this container it's on the top there. Once you get it from back there, you can't see it a lot. But those are your main ingredients, and then of course you need water to make the tea. And so the way that we make the tea then is I use these 6-quart pots here. And I'll just use one pot to make the tea, and it'll make it really strong. And I'll steep the tea in there, for 5 or 10 minutes. And then when I want to finish it, I'll strain it over into another 6-quart pot. So I'll put it over there, I'll strain it, and then I will add the sugar. So with these glass containers that I have, it's a 1.5 gallons of tea that you're going to make. With a 1.5 gallons of tea, you're going to use about 1.5 cups of sugar. So it's a pretty easy ratio there. If you do a 1 gallon of tea, it's a cup of sugar, 1.5 gallons of tea, 1.5 cups of sugar. So after we strain out the tea, we would pour the sugar in there, of course using a little measuring cup, 1.5 cups, stir it in with a wooden spoon. Show them the spoon there. Wooden spoon. It's important when you're working with kombucha in the long run that you don't use metal, and I'll get to that here in just a minute. But we stir that in, and then you want to let that tea sit. You want to let it cool to room temperature before you add it back to your SCOBY. Now, if it's your first batch of kombucha, you'll get a SCOBY probably from a friend, or you can buy it at a store. And what you will do is just fill up the jug with tea. And since we use a 6-quart pot, I just fill it in with the really strong tea, and then I just fill it in with water on top of that. And then you'll put the SCOBY on top. If it's continuous brew, you just leave the SCOBY in the bottom like this one is, and then you just pour the tea back on top of it. So that's the basics for how you use it. Your jug is important. We use glass jugs. Some people use plastic, which is fine. I'm just not a huge fan of plastic personally. And then when you have the spigot here, you want to make sure that it's plastic. So again, for some reason, SCOBYs don't do well with metal. I believe it actually harms them. So when you're using a container, whether it's a plastic or a glass container, make sure the spigot is plastic and not metal. So that's how you're going to make your tea. Once you have it in there, we usually let it sit for about 2 weeks, although if it's your first time, it may take 3 or 4 weeks. And the way you'll know that it's done is you'll just taste it. So we taste it every few days, and when you first start it, it's real sweet, and then after a while it gets that kind of tangy kombucha flavor after a while. And so when it's at the right tanginess, then you just bottle it. And for us, the right tanginess, we like it pretty kind of tart and tangy, and we figure that way a lot of the sugar is gone too. And then when you bottle it, you can bottle it just plain, or you can add flavors. We'll just do the glass kombucha bottles that we've got at the store, and we'll add 4 or 5 frozen blueberries to some, or frozen cherries to others, or frozen strawberries are one of our favorites. Sometimes we'll do frozen blueberries with a 1/4 teaspoon of ginger, but there's a ton of recipes online, so you can just Google that and pick your favorite recipe. And after that, if you're gonna secondary ferment it, we just put it on the countertop for 4 to 5 days and burp the bottles every day or so they don't get too carbonated. That'll get you a nice little fizz at the end though. So 4 or 5 days on the countertop with a burp every day, and then put it in the fridge for about 24 hours or so, and you should be ready to go. So that's how you make continuous brew kombucha at home. If you have any questions, feel free to give me a call or just leave me a comment here below, and I'll clarify anything that I didn't touch on in the video. And if you need a SCOBY, I have lots of SCOBYs too. So if you don't already know me and you want a SCOBY, just let me know too. So good luck, and enjoy your kombucha. Bye bye.